Hello, welcome to Unacademy platform. This platform provides daily live classes, structured courses, live tests, unlimited access on subscription. You can also download the Unacademy learning app, which is going to provide the same thing that is available in YouTube and various other courses. This is about me. Okay, and this is my Telegram link. So if you face any doubt in my class, you can ping me here. This is my Unacademy profile. Okay, these are the top educators in Unacademy. You can go and have access to the courses offered by them. These are the different subscription plans. So for example, if you choose plus plan, plus subscription, then you have live classes, test series, unlimited practice, and structured schedule. If you go, there are different uh, subscriptions plans of different durations. Okay, so you can choose the plan according to your requirement. And if you use this way discount code, that is Amit PS, that is, if you use this very code, then you will get 10% discount. Okay, if you go with the iconic subscription, you also have, along with the plus, the benefits that you get in plus, you also have personal coach, really means question answer practice, study planner, and personalized feedback. Again, these are the different subscription plans, and if you apply this code, that is Amit PS, you will get 10% discount here. Okay, now again, these are the different plans to subscribe. These are the list of optionals, and I am going to take PSIR optional, that is political science and international relations. Okay, again, these are the plans that you can subscribe according to your requirement, and if you apply this code, that is Amit PS, you will get 10% discount. Okay, now coming to the course. Today, we are going to continue our discussion in Plato, and we are going to cover Plato's scheme of communism of family and property. Okay, so far we have discussed theory of knowledge, theory of knowledge, and there you saw how virtue is knowledge. Okay, and then we discussed theory of ideas, then theory of forms, that is also called theory of forms. Then we discussed justice, theory of justice, and then we went on to discuss education, theory of education. And in all these theories, you have seen that Plato is actually trying to build an ideal state. Yes, ideal state. Uh, that is his ultimate project. Okay, that is his ultimate intention. Okay, now in order to achieve this ideal state, Plato is coming out with this other scheme, that is communism of family and property. So his scheme of communism should be seen with this perspective, that this again is going to be useful for the establishment of ideal state. Okay, okay. So I told you that ideal state is the preconceived conclusion that he's having, and now he's trying to achieve it by first coming out with certain principle of justice. Then he's coming out with the scheme of education, and this is in line with those schemes, whereby he will again try to come with another scheme. Okay, to ultimately achieve the ideal state. Okay, so now we start with this very term that we have, that what is communism. Okay, what is communism? Now this is something that we are going to deal in very good detail in Western political thought in the chapter of Karl Marx, and also in the ideology of Marxism. But for for our discussions, for the sake of this very lecture, so that you could actually be able to understand everything here, we can simply define communism as a political system which is based on common ownership of wealth. Okay, so in simplest terms, it can be defined as common ownership of wealth. So it is basically seen in terms of economy. Okay, a kind of economic system. Basically, a kind of economic system. That is why it is being said that it is the common ownership of wealth. But communism can also be beyond economy. So communism, essentially in that sense, which would mean common ownership. Okay, common ownership. That is what we mean by communism. In simplest terms, I'm talking about. I'm not going into the details yet. Okay, at this very stage, I cannot go into the details of this very communism. This is a well-established ideology. We are going to study in a very good detail this particular concept. But for understanding this particular topic, we don't need to go in much detail here. Okay, so if communism means common ownership, then communism of family and property means what? Common ownership of property and common family. Okay, common family. Now, this is just an idea that you should be having. Okay, in the starting. Now we are going to going into the details, and then we will see that how Plato is coming up with communism of family and property. Okay. Now, first thing to know that why he is coming out with communism. When Karl Marx, when you will study Marx, you will find out that Marx communism or Marx suggested communism to deal with a political problem, to deal with an economic problem. I'm sorry, to deal with economic problem. And what was the problem that Marx was facing, or Karl Marx was trying to resolve? That problem was that all the resources, the mode of production was being controlled by bourgeois of the society. Okay, so bourgeois were in control of all the resources, all the economic resources. Okay, they were controlling the mode of production, and that is why through that control they were also controlling the state apparatus. Okay, for that he suggested communism. Okay, so it was basically the economic problem for which Marx came out with the scheme of communism. But the most famous kind of communism that is available in literature is Marx communism. Okay, Marxian communism. But that is something that we are going to deal later. Here, Plato's communism is a kind of economic solution of a political ailment. Okay, Marxian communism of Marx was a political solution to an economic ailment. It was a political solution to an economic ailment. That means it was a kind of solution which was political in the sense that ultimately Marx was trying, or Marx was motivating the proletariat, that is the working class, to gain control over the state. Okay, that is the socialist state, and then finally withering away of the state will lead to communism. So he was trying to resolve an economic ailment, but here Plato is trying to resolve a political ailment. Political ailment means something that is problematic in the political sphere. And in order to resolve that political ailment, he is coming out with an economic solution. Okay, so what is the economic solution? This communism of property and also the common family is an economic solution for the political ailment, for a problem that exists in political arena. And what is that problem? The problem is of corruption. Okay, corruption, especially in the रूलर क्लास. ओके, रूलिंग क्लास में जो करप्शन है उसको रेक्टिफाई करने के लिए, दूर करने के लिए कम्युनिज्म की डिवाइस यूज कर रहा है प्लेटो. ओके, now see that communism is a socio-political system, as I told you, which is based on common ownership of wealth. Now we are going into the details of the scheme of communism that Plato has proposed. Okay. Now, according to Plato, justice is the very objective of ideal state. That is something that we know by studying the theory of justice, that it is the very ideal of the very objective, the very purpose of ideal state. Okay. So ideal state cannot exist without justice. See, the ideal state consists of three classes, as we have seen again in the theory of justice, that is the rulers, auxiliaries, that is soldiers, and producers, performing their respective jobs. If they are performing their respective jobs, that means two things will be ensured. First is proper stationing, the second is non-interference, and that is what we mean by justice when it comes to Plato's theory of justice. Okay, so in Plato's scheme, this is what we mean by justice. Then Plato further says that justice would be established if guardian class, that is rulers and auxiliaries. I have told you that rulers and soldiers together are called guardian class. Okay, do away with property. Okay, do away with property means justice. It is important for the establishment of justice. Okay, first of all, you need to know that justice is the very objective, the very purpose of the establishment of ideal state. Okay, so you can't imagine ideal state without the establishment of justice. Okay, now in order to install justice, in order to establish justice, it is important. It is important, Plato is saying, that guardian class, that is rulers and auxiliaries, do away with the institution of property. Means they should give up their property. Why they should give up their property? Why rulers and auxiliaries, that is soldiers, should give up their property? Why they should do away with property? It is because property is something which represents the element of appetite. Okay, element of appetite. Now, this element of appetite, you understand that amassing property was something which was attractive to those who left education at the age of 18. Okay, that is why they did not go for military education. They also did not go for any kind of higher mathematics and education in mathematics, science, dialectics. Okay, so why they left the education there? They left education because they were guided by this very dominant property in their soul, that was appetite. And this appetite was for what? Amassing of wealth. Okay, earning more and more money. So property in that sense is actually symbolic, or symbolic of, or it symbolizes appetite, or it is an element of appetite. Okay, and appetite is the dominant virtue or dominant quality in the souls of producer class. Okay, now we are talking about rulers and auxiliaries. So if element of appetite is something which is present or dominant, or present in a dominant way in producer class, then it should not be there with rulers and auxiliaries. Okay, so property being or representative, being the representative of the appetite, should not be there with rulers and soldiers. Okay, because rulers and soldiers have have different dominant quality in their souls, that is reason and spirit respectively. Okay, rulers have spirit as the dominant quality in their soul, and auxiliaries, that is soldiers, have spirit. Rulers have reason as the dominant quality, and soldiers have spirit as the dominant quality. Okay, because property represents the element of appetite, and appetite is the dominant quality in the class of producers. That is why it is being suggested that rulers and auxiliaries, that is guardian class, should give up property. Okay, now how the institution of property can be done away with. Now, in order to do away with the institution of property for the rulers and auxiliaries, it is important that we have the communism of families. Communism of families means it will mean various things. Okay, we will go into detail within few minutes. So, communism of family means we are not going to have the proper family based on monogamous sexual relationship. That is what we mean by communism of families. So there will not be regular husband wife kind of family. Okay, so the families, that as we know that they are based on a permanent monogamous relation between male and female. Okay, so that is what we know as family. Those families are not going to be there in ideal state, because that kind of mechanism is required in order to do away with the institution of property, which represents the element of appetite, and that is why it is not something which should be there with rulers and auxiliaries. Okay, the crux of the argument is this, that property represents the element of appetite. Now, appetite is the dominant quality in the souls of producer class, and that is why this should not be there with rulers and auxiliaries, that is soldiers. Now, in order to do away with the institution of property, communism of families is required. Okay, so this is the argument. Now, communism of family will involve various things. Okay, it would mean various things, and that is why we are going to cover that. Now, see, private property and family relationships appear to be the chief sources of friction. Okay, private property means everyone is indulged in amassing more and more property in their favor, and family relationships, because this is going to promote what? Nepotism. Okay, favoritism in the state, and that nepotism, favoritism is going to make the state of affairs, or is going to promote corruption. This seems to be the chief sources of friction in society, and it is also the source of rivalry in every community. And that is why the private property and family relationship should not be present in ideal state, especially for rulers and auxiliaries, that is the guardian class. Okay, mind you that Plato is asking only the rulers and auxiliaries to do away with the institution of property and adopt the communism of families. Okay, this condition is only for this condition is only for whom? This condition is only for guardian class. Okay. Now Plato, this is the opinion of the Savine. Actually, that Savine says that Plato was so convinced about the pernicious effects of wealth on the government that he saw no way to abolish the evil except by abolishing the wealth itself. Okay, what Savine is saying here, that Plato considered wealth to be the most important, or one of the most important factor which contributed or which make the government evil, okay, or which made it corrupt. And in order to deal with this kind of evil, in order to deal with this kind of bad practice, he did not see any other way except by abolishing the wealth itself. So he is abolishing the wealth, that is the institution of property, in order to safeguard the governance from the pernicious effect of the wealth, or the bad effect of the wealth. ओके, मतलब इसका ये है कि गवर्नेंस जो है that is negatively affected by wealth or by the institution of private property. Now, who are responsible for governance? If I take two classes, then guardian class, that is rulers and auxiliaries, they are responsible for the governance, and that is why a system should be designed, a system should be devised whereby they are not guided by the motive of amassing more and more wealth in their favor. Okay, this is important because Plato is very much convinced about the bad effects of wealth. Now, if something or some strategy could be devised whereby wealth itself is abolished for these two classes, that is, rulers and soldiers, then it would be ensured that wealth does not cause any harm to the governance, okay, to the system of governance. That is why he's doing away with the institution of private property. Okay, now according to Plato, family is the bigger evil than property. Okay, getting it? That is why, in order to end the institution of property, families communism of family is also required. But not only that, he says that family is a bigger evil than property, as it promotes corruption and nepotism. Okay, so nepotism, corruption, favoritism, all that is going to be promoted according to Plato by families. And now this is something that rulers and auxiliaries, that is the guardian class, should not be suffered. Okay, should not actually be affected by corruption and nepotism. This should not touch the guardian class. In order to establish ideal state, it is required to ensure that corruption, nepotism, favoritism should not touch the guardian class. Okay. Now, to tackle this variable, Plato suggests communism of wives and family and the end of permanent monogamous sexual relationships. Okay. Now, see the extreme that he's actually ready to travel in order to ensure or in order to establish the ideal state, because he is convinced about the bad effects, the evil nature of family and the wealth. Okay, why why does he consider them to be bad? Because family promotes corruption, nepotism, favoritism, and property, the institution of private property, become a very strong motive to do corruption in the governance and collect or amass more and more property. Now, in order to establish ideal state, it is important, especially for the guardian class, that they should remain untouched by any evil. Okay, so these are the biggest evils according to Plato, and that is why he is doing away with the institution of property, and to ensure that property or the institution of property has been done away with, he also suggests for the communism of family. Now, this what is understand the impact of the implication of this very thing, that is communism of wives and family. Communism of wives and family means you generally have husband-wife kind of relations. Okay, that is something that is the basis of family. Communism of wife means what? A woman is not going to be a wife of any single male or any single individual. Okay, so there would be end to a permanent monogamous sexual relationship, which is actually the basis of the family. Getting it? So, if there is no permanent monogamous sexual relationship, then there would not be any family. Okay, because this is actually the basis of the family. Now, in an institution of family, there is permanent monogamous sexual relationship, and that is how we regulate. That is how the through institution of marriage, the regulated the instinct, the basic instinct of the humans are being regulated, and that is why it is considered the marriage is considered one of the greatest institutions. Okay, now if marriage is not that kind of permanent monogamous relationship is not there. Okay, please keep this in very mind that Plato is not doing away with the institution of marriage. Okay, he is not against marriage. He is against permanent monogamous sexual relations. Okay, permanent monogamous sexual relationship is something that is Plato is against. Okay, he is not denying, he is not against the institution of. So marriage will be there, but that marriage is not going to come with this condition of permanent monogamous sexual relationship. Okay, so this will be substituted. What? Permanent monogamous sexual relationship will be substituted by regulated breeding at the behest of a state for the purpose of securing best possible offspring. Okay, so permanent after doing away with the permanent monogamous sexual relationship, what Plato is trying to have, kind of system that Plato is trying to propose, is this, that the best of the males. Okay, best of the males means, for example, those males who are best in their health, in their intellect, and those females who are best in their health and their intellect, they are going to mate, and thus the best possible offspring is going to be secured. Okay, that is the intention here. Now, this very thing, this very regulated breeding, in order to secure the best possible offspring, we have a word for it, that is eugenics. Okay, this was something which has been practiced by different in different time periods in different parts of the world. For example, under Nazi Germany, this very thing was actually tried. Okay, so the similar thing is being tried in the theory of communism by Plato. Okay, now this very regulated breeding at the behest of a state is going to have these following advantages. First advantage is this, that ruling class will not be able to discriminate among children. Okay, now if there is no permanent monogamous sexual relationship, this means what? There will be no permanent husband and wives. I'm repeating that there will be no permanent husband and wives. I'm not saying that there will be no husband and wives. I'm saying that there will be no permanent husband and wives. Husbands and wife will be there. Okay, marriage will also be there. But what will not be there is this, that is known as permanent monogamous sexual relationship. Okay, now if this is not there, then one woman would be making or would be mating with various males. Okay, in order to secure the best possible offsprings, and one man will be mating with various women. So, in that sense, one man will be the husband of various women, and one woman will be having the various husbands. So, actually, this is one of the criticism that Aristotle comes out with. But this is in order to explain his scheme of things. I'm actually coming out with this very example, that husband and wife are still there. What is not there is the monogamous permanent sexual relationship. Okay, now because in this kind of situation, no parent or no individual is going to be sure that this particular child is actually the child of this particular individual. So, for example, if there is no monogamous permanent monogamous sexual relationship, then there will not be any discrimination among children because one cannot identify the real parents of children. Okay, so for example, if a woman gives birth to any child, then who is the father of child? It is not going to be easily determined. Okay, because that woman is not in under any permanent monogamous sexual relationship with any single male. That woman is having various sexual relationship with various males. Okay, in order to secure best possible offspring. This is all being regulated by the state. Okay, so it might be the case that the woman herself is not knowing that the child that she is bearing uh, is the son of which individual. Okay, who is the father of that very child? This is something that will not be known to the guardian class. Okay, and because this would not be known to the guardian class, then no one will be able to discriminate, or no one will be discriminating among children, because no one will be identifying themselves as the father or mother of any particular child. Okay, because they do not simply know about them. Okay, they know that they have contributed in securing the best possible offsprings. They know that women will also know that they have actually delivered child, but all that will be regulated by the state. No mother is going to uh, take care of her child as her mother alone. Okay, so she will be the mother of so many children, and she will not be able to recognize her own child. So she will see the intention here, the purpose here is to make a situation where a woman as well as a man will be able to see every child as their own child. Okay, because they do not simply know about their child. Actually, there cannot be. Uh, okay, so I think you got it by now. Now, the second point is women will be relieved from their responsibility of child rearing and will be able to devote themselves to the state. Okay, why this so? Because all that is happening, the regulated breeding is happening at the behest of the state. Getting it? And that is why women will be relieved from the all these responsibilities. And if they are relieved from all these responsibilities, then they will be devoting themselves to the affairs of state. Okay, now Now we come to compare with the scheme of communism, okay, of Plato with that of Marx. So I told you, although we are going to see that in detail, but Karl Marx is known for his his criticism of capitalism. Okay, so he criticized capitalism for various reasons. Okay, in order to understand these very points, you need to understand this much. So you know that capitalism is based on what? It is based on free market. Okay, okay, it is based on doctrine of laissez-faire. That is non-interference. Now, what is the meaning of free market? That the price of any particular product in the market is going to be determined by demand and supply. Demand and supply. Okay, this is what is capitalism is all about. Now, if there is free market and demand and supply is going to be the determining factor in cost, and now along with free market, capitalism also ensures the institution of private property. So the property or the resources are going to be controlled by individuals. Okay. Now, property and resources are going to be controlled by individuals. That means that an individual can go on amassing the property, more and more property in his favor. Okay, if it is legal or through legal means. So capitalism, in that sense, is going to motivate individuals to work harder, to innovate more, okay, to become more competitive, so that they could amass more and more property, because institution of private property is well acknowledged there. Now, capitalism, because it has free market, and that free market promotes innovation, efficiency, and competition, is uh, is considered to be very efficient, and that is why it has been adopted by various countries. So, in the decade or in 19th century, what was happening, that this was actually the golden period of capitalism, or you can say a time period when we were seeing these effects of capitalism in most prominent way. Okay, so we were having the free market, or we were having the emergence of free market, and then there was demand and supply, which was deciding the cost of the products, and we saw the emergence of various industrialists. Now, it is claimed that in capitalism, free market exists because of the non-interference of state. Okay, state does not interfere. That is why we are saying that there is free market. So the claim here is this: that everything is free, fair, and legal in the capitalism. In capitalism, and the one individual who is able to collect property or appropriate more and more property in his favor, that became possible only because individual was very competitive, he was very innovative, he was very hardworking. Now, what about the poors in that very system? Poors are poor because they are not innovative, they are not competitive, they are not working hard. So this is actually the general assumption. Okay, I'm talking about the era when the capitalism as an ideology, as a system was actually emerging in practical sense. During this time, we also see the emergence of industrialist class, and we also see the concentration of wealth taking place. Okay, so the majority of the wealth was being controlled by few industrialists. This time, Karl Marx started criticizing capitalism. He said that it is incorrect to say that in capitalism, state is not interfering in market, or state is not responsible for the poverty of the masses, or state is not being biased against the masses by enriching certain set of individuals, and those individuals are actually industrialists. So the kind of neutrality that was being claimed by the proponents of capitalism for for the institution of state is being questioned by Karl Marx. He says that it would be incorrect to assume that in capitalism state remains neutral. He says that state is not neutral in capitalism. And it is also incorrect to think that industrialists have been able to amass more and more property in their favor because they are hardworking, they are innovative, and they are competitive. No, they have been able to amass more and more property in their favor at the cost of the proletariat, that is, at the cost of the working class, who are actually in majority, by controlling the state apparatus, by controlling the institution of state, which has monopoly over the coercive power. Karl Marx is saying that the bourgeois class, that is the industrialist class, through their control over means of production, okay, bourgeois class, that is the industrialist, through their control over mode of production, are also controlling the apparatus of state. Now, through their control over the state apparatus, they are able to appropriate all the resources in their own favor, which is becoming the factor behind the impoverishment of proletariat, that is workers in the society. Getting it? Now, this is the reading, the analysis of capitalism in the most short form that's I'm just giving you the shortest view possible. Okay, when it comes to Karl Marxian analysis of capitalism. Okay, although we are going to see that in detail, in very good detail, in respective chapters. Now, this is the problem that I was pointing towards when I started this class on communism, and when I said that Karl Marx was facing an economic problem. Okay, and he is going to offer a political solution to the economic problem. So, the economic problem that Karl Marx is facing is this, that the control over means of production is of it is the bourgeois class or the industrialist class which is controlling, or which is having control over means of production. Okay, so this is what, this is an economic problem. But the problem of Plato was not economic, it was political. He was having a different set of problem, that was mainly the corruption in the ruling class, and um, the evil nature of politics, all that we discussed in the starting of the lecture. And that is why it was a political ailment. The Plato actually was facing the political ailment, while Marx is facing the economic ailment. Now, after understanding Marx's analysis of capitalism, you will also be interested in knowing that what is the strategy, what is the solution that Karl Marx is going to offer. So, the problem for Marx is this, that industrialists, through their control over mode of production, are also going to control state. And through their control over state, they are controlling everything in perpetual way. So now, in order to resolve this problem, he suggests the workers of the world to unite and take control, or snatch the control of state from control over state, or the control of bourgeois over state. Okay, so workers of the world are going to unite, and they are going to take away the control over state from bourgeois to, and they will give it to themselves. Okay, so they will start controlling the state apparatus. Once they will start controlling the state apparatus, then through the state machinery, they will ultimately start controlling the mode of production also. Okay, so that is what Karl Marx calls to be socialist revolution. That is taking the control of state, or taking control over the state apparatus, and ultimately controlling the mode of production. Okay, now this is the communism of Marx. Now this is a socialist state. Now this will give rise to this will pave the way for the establishment of communism, whereby this very state, which after socialist revolution is being controlled by proletariat, is going to wither away, because Marx ultimately considers state to be an instrument of exploitation. So, in order to establish an ideal society, according to Karl Marx, in order to establish an idealist society, it is important to do away with the institution of state. Okay, in the initial stage, That is, in the socialist revolution, Karl Marx suggested the proletariat to go for taking control over state only to make sure that mode of production also comes under their control. That is why that is necessary because bourgeois at present are controlling the state and also controlling the mode of production. So that kind of revolution is actually required. The socialist revolution, according to Marx, is going to be a bloody one. Okay, and he is saying that violence and bloodiness, or bloody violence, is actually not a problem. So he is also in favor of a bloody revolution in order to bring about this tectonic change, this shift that is taking place. That is the control of bourgeois over the state, and that control is now going to be transferred to the proletariat class, that is the working class. Okay, ultimately, that socialist revolution is going to pave the way for the establishment of communism. And in the stage of communism, there will be no state because state will ultimately wither away. Okay, it is important to do away with the institution of state according to Karl Marx because state is actually an instrument of exploitation. It is again only by the instrument of a state that bourgeois, through their control over the mode of production, were exploiting the working class, that is the proletariat. State, being the instrument of exploitation, has to go away in order to establish an ideal society, in order to establish communism. Okay, so this is what we know as communism of Karl Marx. Okay, now we just saw the communism of Plato. So it was doing away with the institution of private property and also the ending permanent monogamous sexual relationship. Now you have a fair view of the scheme of communism that you find in Plato and also in Karl Marx. Now it will not be difficult for you to understand that for Plato, he was dealing with a political problem and the kind of solution that he offered was economic. But for Marx, he was dealing with an economic problem, and the kind of solution that he was offering was a political one. Okay, so now after understanding this much, it will be easy for you to understand that scholars have attempted to compare the scheme of communism of Plato and Marx. For example, Professor Maxey and Professor J. they find similarity between Plato and Marx, and Professor Maxey declares Plato to be the first communist. See, these kind of scholars' names are important in order to write good answer. Okay, I already told you. So you should try to remember these very names. But to find such similarity is to draw wrong parallels. Okay, it would be incorrect to draw such kind of to declare such kind of similarities or to say that those things are similar. Plato's communism and Marxian communism is not similar. Okay, now you will be able to understand it. Plato's communism has a political objective. What is that political objective? That is the establishment of ideal state. Okay, and that is doing away with the problems of corruption, evils, and all. It is an economic solution. Economic solution, why? Plato's communism is why an economic solution because he is offering the on private, he's offering to do away or he's suggesting to do away with the private property first, and he's also offering the ownership, common ownership, and communism of family. So that is again an economic solution to a political problem. What is a political problem Plato is facing? That is the problem of corruption in the ruling class. Whereas Marx, communism has an economic objective. Okay, what is that economic objective that you already know now? It is a political solution. Why Marxian communism is a political solution? Because it is happening through socialist revolution. Okay, to an economic problem. And what is the economic problem that Marx was facing? It was control of industrialist over mode of production. In Marxian communism, state ultimately withers away. Yes, as I told you, that ultimately state is going to wither away because state, according to Marx, is an instrument of exploitation. So it has to go in order to establish an ideal society. So state ultimately withers away, ultimately goes away in Marxian communism. Whereas Plato's communist device establishes an ideal state. Okay, so Plato is not going to end the institution of state. He is going to establish the institution of ideal state. Okay, Plato's communism is limited to two classes. Yes, again, if you recall, the doing away with private property and having a common family or doing away with permanent monogamous sexual relations, these two conditions are applicable only to the guardian class, and guardian class is consisted of first ruler class and second soldiers class, that is auxiliaries. While Marxian communism is for whole society. Okay, this is very clear. Now again, in Marxian scheme, communism is to be achieved by going through transitory phase of socialism, as I discussed in my explanation. So first there is a socialist revolution, and when proletariat, that is working class, is able to have good control over the state apparatus and is going to take away the mode of production which were being controlled by the industrialist, ultimately after that very stage, the stage of communism will come. So there is a transitory phase of socialism before ending or before reaching to the stage of communism. Okay, which will require revolution. Yes, this phase of socialism will actually be possible only after socialist revolution, and this revolution, as I told you, can also become violent. Okay, whereas in Plato's scheme, education promotes renunciation. Okay, education promotes renunciation. How? Because you have seen that uh, till the age of 50 years, those very people who are going to be eligible for the office of philosopher king, they are going to be trained in both theoretical and practical education. And by the time they reach this very age of 50, they are fully eligible for philosopher king. But but their first love is not the property or power. Their first love is philosophy, and that is why they are going to devote themselves for the attainment of more and more wisdom. Okay, for attaining more and more wisdom. Okay, and they are reluctant to rule, if you recall, and that is why this reluctance to rule, this love for wisdom and philosophy, is going to make them reluctant to hold property also. So uh, um, they will start developing the renunciation, the feeling of renunciation of property. Okay, for the property, as wisdom and courage are superior to virtues, to the fondness of material things. Yes, even for the auxiliaries, property is not going to be a very attractive institution, a very attractive thing, because in soldiers class you do not have appetite as a dominant virtue, while but spirit as the dominant virtue. Okay, now there are various criticisms which have been uh, offered by the scholars here, and that is going to be a topic in our next lecture. And after communism, after covering the criticism of communism, we are going to deal with institution of philosopher king, and then we'll continue our class, and we will probably be ending our class on Plato in the very next lecture. Okay. Now, if you like the video, then please subscribe, and then if you go for any kind of subscription, then you can use this very code, that is Amit PS, in order buy to avail 10% discount in your subscriptions. Okay, so this was all about Plato's scheme of communism. We will continue with the criticism of this very scheme in the very next class. Thank you.